Well, thanks for trekking out to the basement over here in the alumni house. It's nice and quiet down here, actually. This is at first Let's Just Selfie Bad at Drupal 8, except the inevitable parts of learning. And this may not be what you expect. It's we'll talk about Drupal 8. I want to discuss it definitely at the end. It's going to be about the methods that we could use to learn in general, learning in general. So my objective is so that we can walk away from this feeling a little more empowered, whether it's Drupal 8 or anything else in the cosmos of web production or whatever we all do on a daily basis. Introducing myself, my name is Quevin Davison. I am a technical project manager, scrum master, architect. I wear many hats over at Hook 42. Hook 42 is a boutique here in San Francisco in the Bay Area. I'm actually in Seattle, so I flew down for this. And we have a distributed team who work on a number of projects, including, if I can say a few, like Zicasso, huge tourism sites and travel sites, luxury travel. My former project was with SunPower Solar. And it's a great company. But the point of this slide, I've had 30 jobs since I was a teenager. Many of you have probably had the same, if not more. I was initially a missionary evangelist. I slide that out because I have nothing to do with that now. And I've been in web design for 20 years. Since '96. I've owned 3 internet businesses. One of them was pretty good. I've had 1 bankruptcy resulting from one of those guys. And luckily I've canceled that out and I bought a house, have great credit now. I've survived 3 .com startups. I graduated from college in 2010. And I'm 42 and still learning. So my reason for this slide is to explain, I am still learning. I've failed a lot, I've learned a lot. And hopefully that resonates with you a little bit. And how about yourselves? Can you see this nice little... Yeah, that's good. So I want to ask to get a feel of the room, how many would call themselves let's start with the deep level, like a Drupal developer. You touch code, you check in code, you get source control, and it's your daily routine. How about on more of an upper, not that it matters up or down or whatever, but site building? You're mostly site building. How about then more on how about back on the architecture side of things? You conceive the architecture for a site of any size. Maybe that's combined with development. How about more on the information side, like information architecture, marketing, content strategy? Yeah. Okay, so wow, we've got like a nice spectrum of people in the room. Why are we here? And I did this the other night, so this dot needs to go over here somewhere. And so why are we here? I mean, who, like myself, has been a little frustrated with Drupal 8. And I would like to talk about Drupal 8 a little bit and all the technologies surrounding it, but not specifically, but more on a general sense, to try to hone things down and to get over that initial feeling of fear, maybe, a little frustration. It happens with every change in technology. We're here to learn at Bad Camp. And, like I said, I hope we all walk out here feeling a little more empowered and encouraged. Drupal 8 is disruptive. And this little graphic, if you can see it, it's the little dots represent the various, Drupal 4, 5, 6, 7, and Drupal 8 comes along, and it's this disruptive event, and you have forks, you have splits. It's kind of like church, someone came in and they had a new idea, and some people left, they didn't like it. Maybe you're familiar with that, maybe not. But this learning curve has been pretty dramatic, and this little guy, I love this guy, one of our artists at Hook 42, Jeff.
Hello.
And they're guys, they're from Hook 42 too. But this little guy, I love him because he sort of represented the end of life for Drupal 6. But I see him on this slide. I want to put him there because he feels like he represents kind of the Drupal 8 cutoff. And that's kind of how I felt with Drupal 8. But this learning curve, I want to say, screw this learning curve. This is a learning curve that I want to encourage people to consider. It's this infinite loop of constantly learning. We're lifelong Drupal learners, you know, and when you look at this, maybe you feel like you're a novice or somewhere around here learning Drupal 8, and you know, in other places you feel like you're a master, and it's very comfortable to be a master in Drupal 7 and different areas of that technology, those skills. Maybe to ask, before I move on further, how many have dived headfirst into Drupal 8 and you feel even comfortable in Drupal 8 at this point? No hands!
Dive, yes.
Yeah, dive headfirst and you came back with a broken neck. So this is where I start to throw in all the technology surrounding, perhaps along with the change in Drupal 8, but just change in general. There's a lot to know these days. You may notice, you know, Drupal PHP 7 came out. It's faster. We're all happy about that. Symfony came along with Drupal 8. You know, Symfony is not part of the backdrop, just to throw that in there. You know, perhaps we're having to learn some IDEs, PHP Storm. You know, maybe we were all comfortable learning or developing in just a text editor, and now everyone's encouraging us to use an IDE so that we can debug things and click through the function names, the class names to get deeper into the code. Along that, Sass, you know, compiling, you know, transpiling, or whatever the word is, we want to use CSS or Sass so that it becomes a CSS dump that you send up to the server. Composer, Gulp, NPM, all the package managers. There's a lot to consider, and the next slide is like, this is the big data landscape. So some clients might believe that we have this incredible knowledge of all these things, and we're expected to know about all of these integrations with Drupal. I mean, consider all of the almost 40,000 modules with Drupal. All of them attempt to cover some of this technology, and to make it even more overwhelming, we have the marketing landscape, all this technology that can't get CDs on the screen, but this slide actually gives a little more detail. I'll upload those. But each of these areas, like project and workflow, everything has some sort of integration with Drupal, potentially. And with every new project that I have, there's always something new to learn. And this is what our world looks like. And I think we're expected to know, you know, all about this stuff and to make decisions based on this messy landscape. Perhaps you've seen some emails from recruiters like this. You know, you receive this message that says, "Hey, we're looking for a developer that has all of this mastery and all of these skills, and it's just ridiculous." Has anyone gotten an email like this? I get it every day. Jeff and I joke about this on Slack.
Requiring longer experience in Drupal
than it actually exists. I love those. It's entertaining. Pardon me. And one point I want to throw out there is something that interests me, is that knowledge, the accumulated human knowledge has been doubling every 12 months, and it's soon to be doubling every 12 hours. And this is since the printing press. You know, there was this crescendo, this exponential growth of knowledge, and it all happened when, you know, we would pass information verbally, you know, stories. So, you know, the accumulated human knowledge wasn't very vast, and then once the printing press comes out, things explode, and then now you have the internet and so on. It's been, you know, like 1900, there was a tremendous amount of knowledge, and it didn't double until the 50s, and then it's doubling in the 60s, a little less in the 70s. So there's this exponential change in our world where so much information is being thrown at us. And, you know, how do we keep up with this? Do we just stay in college for the rest of our lives and you know, support ourselves from our parents' income or something? I don't think my parents would do that. But we're in a time of tremendous change. I mean, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, I throw this in there, quantum computing, cool space stuff, 3-parent babies. I mean, everything is changing. And I like this quote by Eric Hoffer. He's a writer. And in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with the world that no longer exists. So, you know, we don't know everything, and if we think we do, we're in trouble. And this is that feeling that I want us to set aside. And it's not our knowledge and our experience. It is our knowledge and our experience, not our technical skills. Our value is in our knowledge and the application of that knowledge. Paul Boag is a pretty well-known English digital strategist, he calls himself now, and I listen to his podcast pretty often. Think of all the things that have changed in the last few years. In my career, I've seen Flash go away, Cold Fusion. My dad worked in a language called Clipper, and that's gone. I don't think anyone's writing in Perl anymore. I wrote my first, e-commerce site in Perl. But experience lasts, and I want to read a little bit of this, that we live in a knowledge economy, one that values our ability to make informed decisions and pick the right approach. This kind of subjective decision-making is not something that will be automated, and there will always be the need for experts to identify the right approach. As for the rest of it, let it go. Embrace the new generation of tools that frees us up from those details and allows us to focus on the bigger picture, and that's also a quote from Paul. Robots are not going to replace this, not anytime soon. So no fear. And I put this up here to say breathe. I probably need to breathe more than you do. I'm presenting. Just take a deep breath. It's like, we can do this. We can live in this world. Now, getting into the presentation that includes some of the strategies, I want to talk about Michelangelo. We're told he would say this a lot, and poor Amparo, I butcher that, I'm not Italian, but it says, I'm still learning. He would be known to say this even at his later ages. In Rome in the early 1500s, Pope Julius II demanded that he paint the Sistine Chapel. Anyone been to the Sistine Chapel? Yeah. It's a huge room, very beautiful. All these paintings are on the ceiling. You have to look up, and everybody's kind of walking around, bumping into each other, and looking at the ceiling. And how did he do that? And he was a sculptor. He wasn't a painter. He didn't consider himself a painter. But the Pope at that time, he said, I want you to do this. You better do this. You got no choice. But he didn't want to do it, and he really didn't have a choice. He had multiple problems to solve, including this innovative scaffolding that he had to construct along with, how to move it. And he had these other problems, these methods that they had to figure out to apply the fresco on the ceiling. There was molding. So he had to create all of these new methods and strategies to apply this stuff. And he had never done it before. He had to figure it out as he went. But he finished it within 4 years. And he created new methods, like I mentioned, and he became an expert. So, I think there's hope, and he to me represents this person who can continue to learn. He's excited. He's got this passion about learning. And to build on that idea, I believe, after reading this book by John Medina, Brain Rules, that our brains are as fresh as newborn babies. I think we're told that our brains, as we get older, they get tired and they don't build the same amount of neurons in our head. So we're incapable of learning new things. But that's not true. The adult brain continues creating these neurons, and there's something called neuroplasticity. So this molecular biologist, he did all these tests in his book, Brain Rules. And this research has shown that regions of the adult brain stay as malleable as a baby's brain. So we can continue to grow these new connections. And that's been one little thing that's kind of blocked me. I feel like as I get older, I'm 42, it's like, I just don't have the neuroplasticity as my 4-year-old daughter. But she teaches me a lot, and I think that we can, learn Drupal 8 as well as all the new technologies that are surrounding it. But on top of this, I want to get into the strategy that I wanted to share with you about relearning to learn. It's basically this. I want to see if we can hack our brains without drugs. And the answer is not to run back to college and get a computer science degree. So let's try to be strategic. With this, a new model from Erica Anderson in her book, Be Bad First. She goes through these points: aspiration, neutral self-awareness, endless curiosity, and the willingness to be bad first. I'll just go over a few of those to explain what she means. So you gotta want it, this aspiration. And we often confuse this with being interested, like I'm interested in the possibility of something, but I don't really want to achieve it. You know, how many times have you said, oh, I want to learn how to fly a glider or something like that. I want to or, you name it. But, do we really follow through? I mean, how can we do that? And we only do those things that we want to do when there isn't any other option available to us in the given situation. But you're here. I mean, you've got some aspiration. You're at that camp. You want to learn. So obviously, you're interested in something. And I was going to throw in this toilet analogy that she wrote about. I liked it. It's like you don't want to clean the toilet, but it's there, and you don't need to be inspired to do it, but it's got to be done. So there are some things we just have to learn, and we end up doing them not necessarily because we want to, but we want the outcome of that, a clean toilet. So think of the benefits that come along with this, the increased income, long-term value, perhaps an improved life. Now, neutral self-awareness, this is the idea that kind of comes across. I think all of us have seen American Idol. There are some folks who come out on stage and they think they're awesome. And they get booed off stage or something, or they get booed off by the folks who are leading the show. But they thought they were great, Sometimes I think we tell ourselves, either positively or negatively, I know what I'm doing, or I don't know what I'm doing. And this resonates in our brains, and we let it kind of sink in and allow it to control our lives. And another point is, how do others see us? So that's where I want to get to. And just to read a quote that I had in my notes: recognizing what you're saying inside your head is the first step to being able to have more control over it. I threw this slide in because it says something, it means something different, but to me, it makes me feel like I'm being deprecated myself because I've learned 7, 6, and the new kid on the block is here. I don't know, he looks like a millennial or something, but this is not how I want to see myself, and I think that we want to be careful about these assumptions that we make about ourselves. And we're kind of at odds with the next generation or the previous generation at times, especially with Drupal. Along with this neutral self-awareness idea, I wanted to share this idea of personality profiles. Some of that sounds goofy, but has anyone ever done a personality profile? You ever get anything out of it? Do you feel like it helped? Yeah. But there are several options that I wanted to share. I would suggest giving it a try because this could be a life-changing experience. You might learn a little more about yourself. It might help you learn how to learn. If you're butting your head against the wall about something, maybe that's not the right way to learn it. Maybe it's not watching videos, as is very popular with Jubilee's Me, buildamodule.com. Perhaps it's just getting face-to-face with a colleague or another friend who's learning as well. So it could be insightful and rewarding, and I've done this a few times, and I'm an ENFP, and it explains so much about me. I'm an extrovert, but I'm also very much an introvert, and I need to go home and process things, and I'm quick to change. I get bored really fast, but probably I'm comfortable in front of people, but maybe a little too comfortable at times, so I don't get prepared well. And endless curiosity. So this is one of the last of this new model. The idea is to get an itch to learn something new, and to develop this deep, abiding need to understand and master. And one of the keys here is to find your curiosity sparks. What piques your interest? I mean, you're here right now because something piques your interest. We're at Bad Camp. When you look at that list of sessions, there are things in there that pique your interest, and don't just take those lightly. I mean, because they can draw you into something that will guide you into to help you learn these things a little faster. And along with this, consider what you're telling yourself. You know, think, I wonder if I could do that. You know, consider, why does this happen? Why does this happen to people? And how can I find out more? You know, why is it like this? And I wonder what would happen if I tried this. You know, these are the things that we can tell ourselves instead of, no, that's boring, who cares? I already knew that, or this doesn't matter. Silly, whatever, dude, you know. And lastly, willingness to be bad first. I think this is one of the most important in her new model. This trap of competence, and being this idea that we know what we're doing now. So why should I move on with Drupal 8? Drupal 7 is going to be around for a long time. We're just going to kind of ignore it for a while. It's not interesting to me. And you know, it's a safe place to be there. And you know, this idea of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. In my own experience, I have struggled with Drupal 8, mostly in the fear of object-oriented programming. Jeff, who's sitting over there, he has kind of helped me through that a little bit. You know, helping me discover the IDE, how to click through class names and dig into the code. And you know, knowing that I'm a visual learner, as I learned from my profiling, I spent a lot of time on Build a Module, YouTube. I spent a lot of time recently looking at the DrupalCon Dublin videos and just soaked that stuff up. And that was my spark. And my spark was actually building layouts with the layout plugin module. And it was exciting. It's nice to find something that you're interested in, to have the information available to you, and roll with it. But before I say that, or you know, to preface that, I was ready to give up with Drupal 8. You know, I was like, I'm done. I was writing a blog that I never published, 2 blogs that I never published. One was, well, I'll say the first one was, you know, my positive experience with Drupal 8, and I had started to write the draft, and I was talking with my boss Amy and Kristen, and I still haven't published it yet. But before that, I wrote this other blog post that I will never ever post. It's basically my rant my rant about Drupal 8. Lots of F words. I just got it out of my system because I was so done. I felt maybe that'll help you. So to wrap it up with this new model, she says that aspiration provides the core fuel that'll move you forward into new learning. Neutral self-awareness allows you to see where you are in the journey. And curiosity creates this impulse to dig deeply into understanding more. So 22, we're going fast, so I wanted to go over this other learning method from Tim Ferriss. Anybody know Tim Ferriss? Listen to his blog posts, read his books. He has another book called The 4-Hour Work Week. And that was one of my inspiring books that I thought, yes, we can work 4 hours and get rich a week. No. But what he does is he does his homework, and he learns all these things that he writes about, including deconstruction, selection, sequencing, stakes. So just to go over these guys briefly. With deconstruction, in these meta learning methods, you know, what are the Lego blocks of learning something new? We talk about this with Drupal, this analogy of Lego blocks, that if you could find the right pieces to build your site. But what are those right pieces? I mean, don't focus on the little tiny pieces that you never use. You know, focus on the big pieces, the ones that are more functional for your purpose. Another quote is, "Students are subordinate to materials. Material beats method." What he means by that is, choose your information wisely. Don't read a book on object-oriented programming. In general, try learning about views, for instance, in Drupal 8. Learn how to create relationships with your content. This may be more beneficial to the outcome of your project or to your work than something else. It's kind of like the better your ingredients, the better it'll taste. Because you don't have to be a great chef to make something if you have the right ingredients. And then, which 20% of the blocks will give you the most result, that 80-20 rule. And it's this idea that Hank quotes saying, do as little as possible, not as much as possible. And then sequencing, this is the idea of, what order should I learn those blocks? Is it appropriate to learn views at this point, or are you just learning how to use blocks in Drupal 8? With Drupal 8, it's amazing what you can do with blocks. Everything's a block. But, perhaps it's more important to learn about permissions or something, for your project. And it's also the idea of how badly can you mangle the recipe and still get something incredible. How do you cut time without cutting corners? Lastly, stakes. How do I set up real stakes to guarantee follow through? And this, I've tried this before. Has anyone ever tried to bet some money on something, or use this website called stick.com, where you want to reach a goal, whether it's losing weight or learning something new, and you put your money down on it, and if you don't reach your goal, it can go to an anti-program or to a program that you do want to support. Has anyone ever tried that before? But I think it helps. I think what helps me the most is to work with a mentor, someone who can guide you through and keep you accountable to something. And I'm lucky to be able to work with an organization that has taken on a few Drupal 8 projects. So, if you can, just take on a project. Be accountable to learn and produce something that is of value to a client, perhaps. And some venues to try it out. Pantheon, I should throw that out. So, don't fear the Reaper. I personally love Drupal 8. I'm happy with the outcomes that we have. Building Drupal 8 sites, there are tremendous career opportunities, and I think it only gets better from here. And to quote again Michelangelo, he says, the greater danger for most of us lies in not setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. So, think big. Michelangelo, he may not have wanted to build the Sistine Chapel, but he was a sculptor, not a fresco guy. You may say to yourself, I'm not a developer, I'm not a site builder or something, but find those sparks that will lead you into learning those things to become a master, and can perhaps consider Michelangelo. And I wanted to open it up a bit. This is going to be kind of a short presentation, but we're all mastering, learning new skills. Does anybody want to share what they're learning right now in Drupal 8? What are the challenges, or your experience so far? I shared a little bit of mine. Does anybody want to share what they're doing with Drupal 8 right now? Jeff?
One of the ways I learned how to use it is I started helping out with the Drupal 8 multilingual profile. It's like a demo profile installation. And so I started doing that. That kind of helped me. Maybe there's some. But right now I'm trying to figure out paragraphs and layouts. And it's like, I just want to. It's so hard to figure out what to do in Drupal 8, just to make it look like. And that's what I'm struggling with. Those two things. I don't know.
I've been struggling with that layout plugin.
Yeah.
And we tried multiple things. Yeah,
I can tell what I learned from 8. So plugins. So if you're working with views, you need the plugins for filters. Everything is plugin actually in 8. What I understand. That's the first thing. And the second thing is if you're using CK editor, again you need everything is plugin. If you want to extend the basic one, you need a plugin. So I would suggest everyone to start with plugins, understand what's that.
That's good.
Especially if you're coming from Drupal 7, where you don't have that. That's the piece that is missing. So, so that's my 5 cents.
My first attempt, I tried to do a lot of the things through the UI that I did in 7.
Yeah.
You know, like, so let's just build a really basic site name just so I can say I did it.
Oh, that's a great idea.
You know what I mean? And so the first challenge I ran into was most of the sites that I worked on in the past all had web forms, module web forms, not the individual built-in web form. And so since that wasn't really ready, I looked into all these other ways to kind of get that same task done. And that was really challenging because you could get it done, but not really in the same way. You know? And because web forms has certain functionality. So, but anyway, I had to kind of let that go because I got involved in a lot of other projects. But that was my first attempt.
Do you feel like because you knew web form in Drupal 7, moving into Drupal 8, it was a blocker for you? I mean, if you didn't know anything about those things and you were brand new to Drupal 8, would you have eased right in and not felt like...
I didn't feel like that destroyed my whole experience of Drupal 8. It was a challenge that I realized, well, I'm not going to actually be able to go live with a D8 site for anybody that, you know, that would want that functionality because I'm blocked on it. But I knew that there would obviously be a way to get around that or to solve that problem. I just had to hook up with the right people who could, you know, just tell me how to do that or show me another way, you know, something probably even a little more sophisticated because I know there is entity forms, and if you know how to build that, it's probably even a more robust thing. It's just that it doesn't send emails, so there would be challenges.
Yeah, you're in a loop.
There's always a way. It's just for me at the moment, I didn't have there was no purpose in pursuing it any further because I knew I could just do it in D7 and be done in the evening, you know what I mean? So, but at some point, you know, gonna have to tackle it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyone else want to share?
Just running into functionality that you expect and being or just being full in on doing a Drupal 8 site. There's no looking back. You've gone, and then finding out things that you expect to work aren't quite there yet or don't work the same way, and so having no place other than to try to figure out a way. Like things you could do in rules.
Yeah. How about, do you feel like, oh, I'll just wait till that module is done and maybe the client will be happy with waiting for a while, or you'll be happy with waiting for a while?
Not having a luxury of having that waiting period of being on deadlines for user stuff that was going to be happening, so had to figure out something. And so I guess the biggest challenge was spending a lot of time trying to figure out ways that I knew if I had been in Drupal 7 that wouldn't have been a challenge. And I could have put more effort into making it look sexier or something like that. But just getting it to work.
A lot of energy is put into just
getting it to work.
Yeah. What was the question I had in mind? Has anyone felt like they started with Drupal 8, but they just backed out of it, or have they backed out of a project? Has anyone backed out of a project because you hit a wall like this in Drupal 8 yet? Yeah.
I'm actually scared to venture into it until I have a little bit more confidence. I have a due diligence to clients that I don't want to commit to something that I don't know if it can be done or not. So we have not. We're playing with it, but until we feel confident that we can deploy it and back it up and be able to support it, we haven't even turned the switch.
Yeah, recently I was evaluating panels with that layout plugin, and we were literally waiting for Dublin DrupalCon to finish to see what they would commit, you know, before we continued on. And actually, the dev version of the layout, Page Manager. Like, they just done something that eliminated this one huge bug, and so it became usable after that.
I think another thing for me in Drupal 8 is there's a lot of enhanced functionality on things that didn't have functionality in Drupal 7, like blocks.
Right.
Like there's incredible things you can do with blocks
Uh-huh.
just from core in Drupal 8 that you would have to do panels, context, all kinds of things that just kind of being able to tweak your perspective in 90 degrees to think about different places to look for the solution that you wanted to find.
Yeah, I'm having that same conundrum, same problem where, as an architect, we're trying to figure out what the best solution is for a client. Is it panels? Is it display suite? Is it this? Is it that? But with the block situation in Drupal 8, like there's context in blocks. You can throw in block class. You can create. There's this one particular module that will categorize all your blocks. So it's kind of like context. I think it's block access. So you'll have configurations for either sections of your site, or you can set it for page by page. Because in the past, you look at the blocks page, it's like, oh my god, I don't know where any of these blocks are. Like, why would I use this? And then it says, never use the blocks page. But now, it's pretty usable in that sense. And then on top of that, you have with 8.2 the outside-in functionality, where you just now click on a block in place, or even add a block in place. So it's like, well, then you compare that to panels, IPE, in place editor, and these other solutions. And as an architect, you really have to evaluate these situations for your client. And I don't mean to make that complexity in your minds, but it's that adventure, I suppose. And that kind of stuff interests me.
So can I ask a question
Please.
to the audience? I'm on the business side of this, and I have one domain that's in Drupal 7 and one domain that's in Drupal 8. What do you think the learning curve is going to be for my team to... I have a whole separate team that's on 8, but I don't feel I'm getting the productivity from that team. How long do I need to wait? What's the runtime?
I got an answer, but anyone? Maybe to rephrase that, you're saying that you have two teams, one that's focused on Drupal 7 and one that's focused on Drupal 8, and you're not getting as much productivity yet out of the Drupal 8?
Yeah, because they're still learning it.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to figure out from a business perspective, when's the return on investment going to come back?
Oh man. Yeah. Well, when you...
Because I have to cut over. I have to cut over. And there's not a lot of resources out there to support my team in the sense of it's going to get larger. Where do I get the, how do I hire people with these skills in the future that I need to support?
Have you asked what they feel like they would need or what would work better for them?
This is why I'm here to learn.
Okay, because since everybody does learn differently.
Yeah, but as in here, everyone has a different blocking point, right?
Right. So I think maybe talking more with them and finding out what it is that they're struggling with and how are they able to help each other.
Are you trying to decide which projects to take, or if you can take a project to give these guys?
No, I'm trying to give business an assessment of how long it will take to get the e-commerce site running on that other domain.
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So they're both are e-commerce sites. They offer they serve two different types of clients.
Yeah.
And the development team made a recommendation we should start learning Drupal 8. That's okay. We go ahead and do that, but it's brand new. It's bleeding edge technology. Should we really be in bleeding edge technology? Learning and everything else.
Do you have a response to
If
that?
I understood the question correctly, I would just say my humble opinion is, if you had employees that you like, I would not hire new ones. I would ramp up the skills of the employees that you like.
Yeah.
No, they have their. I'm not trying to get rid of them.
No.
It's just a question of how.
Of how long?
How long?
I have a similar question and thought. Kind of what I was saying earlier is, I'm afraid to go into Drupal 8 because if my client says, "Hey, we want this custom app written in it," we're not capable.
Yeah.
How long before we are? I'm in the same boat.
Because I think that was the one risk assessment that wasn't made to go there. That we were not going to be able to get the features and functionality for our transactions on that site.
Right. One thing that we've done is we're monitoring all of the contributed modules that are on the upgrade path, and I mean, the other thing is there something that's blocking you that you could perhaps put that team towards contributing back to Drupal to move it forward so that everybody else can have some benefit from that? Or, I mean, I guess the question is it an isolated issue? I mean, if it's related to e-commerce, maybe there's a particular module, Salesforce or something.
Yeah, it's just the expectations weren't set properly, I guess.
Yeah.
Because right now I have what I would call brochureware on one site, and I have no transactions.
Right.
And as an e-commerce site, that's not good.
Yes, I would like to tell you something. I'm working with roughly 20 AAA developers and a couple of consulting companies.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment when we were supposed to, are we done? To release in November, the core guys who maintain one module, I won't tell you which one, decided to take turn completely to change. They decided they don't like it and they want to change it. So technically after this meeting I have to chase for one of those maintainers to ask him, please don't do that. Do something else or we are stuck. So that's just one of the challenges you might have. That they don't have something that is firm yet. Mm-hmm. If you can somehow, I don't know if you are using Composer or what, how do you download your packages? If you can lock it to certain versions and then wait for the next release and then do adjustment, or I don't know if you can work like that or not, but
I'm sure they have the capability. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
But still,
It's all great.
Drupal 8 I like it more than Drupal 7. Much more.
That's the feeling I get. That it's just that learning curve, and that if you're supposed to earn money in order to invest, it's hard at that particular point.
Yeah.
So that domain is now at a disadvantage.
Well, we're pretty much out of time, but did anyone feel like they were somewhat encouraged by this presentation? Hopefully more towards the end, perhaps. But I hope you walk away with a little bit of encouragement and understanding about what to do next. This slide was just the personality profiles, and it works for me. I'll post this presentation on the Bandcamp page, as well as some other stuff to link back to, because I have breezed over a lot of stuff without references. And then thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it.